Welcome, friends. I am so excited that you are joining me on this 31-day journey toward cultivating a quiet heart in a noisy and demanding world. In so many ways, noise is everywhere, like leaf blowers outside our windows and cars on the street with horns and loud mufflers. But in addition to the actual noise, there is also visual noise, with bright, colorful screens demanding our attention almost everywhere we turn. I wrote this book because my heart's prayer was to find sanctuary from all the noise. But as much as I wanted to point to the noise around me, and there is plenty to point to, I discovered the real noise was inside me, like a restlessness I couldn't shake. And that's why I was so drawn to this passage in 1 Thessalonians chapter 4, verse 11, that tells us to seek to lead a quiet life. I had so many questions like, how do I do that? And what does a quiet life look like? That's what we'll explore in these next 31 days together. The first thing I want to draw your attention to is, if you look closely on the cover of the book, Sanctuary, you will see some faint lines in the margins. The idea for this is that we are all a work in progress. In our current state, we are unfinished, but we are moving towards something whole and beautiful. And that is the purpose of these next 31 days, to help us cultivate a life that is quieter and simpler and sweeter. What you'll encounter over the next 31 days will not be some secret ingredient or radical innovation. Rather, we will explore together some of the tried and true ways that believers have been growing in quiet grace for generations. As we read the introduction and the first 7 days of this devotional, we'll be challenged by Scripture to examine some of those places in our lives where we are perhaps inclined to look to other things to satisfy us, rather than looking to the one who made us and knows exactly what we truly need. At the end of each day's reading in the devotional, you'll come to a section called Tuning Into Quiet. Here you'll find some really practical ways you can apply the truths of what we've heard and then implement them into your everyday life. And collectively, as one day builds into the next, these habits of grace will culminate to help quiet our hearts. Because a quiet life begins with a quiet heart, and it's really our hearts that God is most concerned with. But don't worry, these habits of grace are not going to be things that we add on top of an already busy life with full schedules and endless to-do lists, because the last thing we need is someone telling us to do more than we're already doing. The world tells us to do more, say more, post more, share more. That is the essence of the try harder and do more mantra that we find everywhere we go, as if everything is all up to us. But what if it isn't up to us? What if the answer isn't in doing more? What if the answer is simpler than that? What if true rest and quiet confidence are not found in trying harder and doing more, but in leaning on a God who is working on our behalf, and He never sleeps? Friends, let's determine in our hearts before we begin not to do anything that adds to our already full plates. But let's look at these next 31 days as an opportunity to see our everyday lives through a new lens. And let's receive these next 31 days as a gift, trusting and believing that God has something very special in store for each and every one of us. Because God knows more than any person on this planet exactly where you are right now, and He knows exactly what you need. As we purpose in our hearts to seek Christ as our sanctuary, We know because God has already told us through the prophet Jeremiah in chapter 29, verse 13, that when we seek him with all our hearts, we will find him. It's a promise.